And off to Angie and Greg we go.
Thanks.
Here, Greg.
Hi, everyone. Wow, yay. I love us. I really love us. I love our precious time together. The Baileys are in California celebrating their fall break. So they say hello. I'm sure they're having a super great time right now. And I don't know where the Stoffers are, so I'm sure they're off having a fabulous fall break as well. They did not apprise me of their schedule, as many people do not. So, you know, that happens. Hi, babe.
Hello.
Are they supposed to speak today?
Who? They were, but she had forgotten that it was on their schedule, so she called me a week ago and said, hey, we're gone again for 2 weeks in a row, so they will be speaking next week. But nice memory. Way to go. Hope you didn't come for them and not for me, but you know, whatever. So it's really funny. I love that song that you picked, Jocelyn, from The Greatest Showman. And I just want you to know, my husband was singing that song standing next to me. I couldn't believe it. I thought you might just listen in, but you were singing. And you guys don't know this, but Greg is not a fan of the musical. He does not, he's never seen The Greatest Showman, or he might have abstained.
I love you, Jocelyn.
Yeah, you don't like musicals? Yeah, right.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
We cannot get him to see The Greatest Showman. Such a great movie, but you have now sung at least one or two of the songs.
Oh, please. These songs have been in the car and doing all this stuff.
Doing all this stuff. They have a life of their own. They're sucking you in piece by piece.
Yes.
But
Just lock him in a room.
I know, right? And then all he can watch and hear is musicals. Did you want to say something, Doodles? You had your arm up.
That's what I was going to say.
You were going to say we should
Dad
lock him in a room and force him?
He hasn't seen it.
Oh, he hasn't seen, yes. Sorry, I should have come to you on that one. Yeah. So I just thought that was hilarious. But what I also loved was I just love the lyrics in that song about the world we get to make. And as I was just kind of connecting with the Lord during that song, he was reminding me of, how many years ago was it when we moved here? Like
12 come Halloween this year.
Okay, thanks. He's the one who remembers our anniversary and important dates, so super grateful for that. Okay, so 12 years, and the Stoffers are here, yay! So the Lord was reminding me of the world we get to make, the life we get to live, and he was reminding me how 12 years ago, or 12 and a half years ago, I was talking to a mentor of mine, and I was about to launch my professional speaking business. And so some of you know that I was doing that, and some of you don't. And you knew that I had built up a relationship with a lot of speakers in the industry and had been in television and had been on a path towards that for quite a few years and was really at that cusp. The website was almost done. There was book portions that were being edited. The content of the message had been focus grouped, presented, professionally taped, edited. We were ready to launch. And my mentor said to me, what is the kind of life you want to be living? Hi guys, we're so happy you're here. It's not the same without you. And digging the hair for sure. Love the braids. Hi Stoffers. And so the Lord said, what kind of life do you want to have? Or my mentor had said, what kind of life do you want to have in 10 years? Because we were talking about my career path. And he said, what do you want your family life to look like? What do you want your relationship life to look like? What do you want your finances to look like? What do you want your day to look like? When you get up in the morning, what do you want that to be? And is that in line? What pieces do you need to change to have the life you really want as you are pursuing this path of your career? And so I said, I'll have to get back to you. He's like, yeah, probably you will. So take 2 weeks and think about it. And I took 2 weeks and I just started making lists of all the things I wanted. And he goes, because you may think, hey, I want to have 10 speaking gigs a month. And he goes, and you want to have this income. He goes, but if you do that, you're traveling this many days a month and you're home about 2 days a month. So think about what life are you trying to build? And so during that song, all of that came to me in a second, right? And I remember that time where I sat for a couple of weeks and reflected on what do I really want. And I remember saying to myself, more than anything, and this shocked me, I said, more than anything, I want my family to be close. I don't want to be that career wife and mother that no longer knows their kids, doesn't really have a close relationship with their spouse, isn't, because you're speaking, you're traveling, doesn't really have a close connection with their kids, and then they're trying to build it once their kids become teenagers. And so I hadn't realized that before. Because I don't know if you know this, some of you might know this, but I have always abandoned family for the next opportunity my entire life. When I was 13 years old, I got the vision of the career that I wanted. I went through high school in 3 years instead of 4 in order to get to college sooner. I left home at 16, and that was when we met, yay! And we didn't get married then. As you know, there's like a 14-year gap, and that's a whole nother story and a whole nother saga, whole nother Hallmark Channel. But anywho, and I had been on a mission ever since. I got to live in, I don't know how many states, 15 states over the course of 10 years, and got to do a lot of different things. The only reason I say this is because I had always chosen the next opportunity, the next exciting thing over relationships and connection and family. That's why I share that. And so it shocked me that at the point where I was actually realizing the career goal of my life, which was the right to stand on a stage, and share something with people, I was realizing that I didn't want to give up the thing that I had always set to the side. And so I came back to him and I said, well, here's what I want. I'd like to speak about 4 times a week. I'd like to have this, a month, thanks. Thanks, that's good math. Neat and organized over here. Just neat and organized, right? Yeah, sorry, about 3 or 4 times a month. I'd like to have this kind of an income, and I would like to have a real relationship with my spouse, not just a tolerance for my spouse. I would like to have real connectedness with my kids. And I know, and we talked about some other things too. And he said, well, he goes, then at this season of your life, you really need to think through some different things. And I remember feeling like the Lord was saying, if this is what you want, I'm going to encourage you to step out of the career path that you're on and take a couple more years and invest in your marriage and invest in your kids and invest in your relationship with me and spend some time there. He goes, because you can run after that later, but you can't pick up your family a couple of years later. And what needs to be built during this time is now. And I had an opportunity before me to surrender to the now. Do you know what I mean? Like it was not sparkly, it was not shiny, it didn't look good, it didn't feel good, but it resonated with the deeper value inside of me. And it was the opportunity to surrender to now. And so we shifted everything based on that decision. And a big part of it was I wanted a real connectedness with God. Not a running after, not a belief about Him. I wanted real life, conversational, connected intimacy with Him that could, daily conversational life with Him. So that was also part of the thing that I was pursuing. Anyway, I didn't mean to say this with all the kids, but here we are. So that song, In a Moment, you know how moments bring back. So all of that was in a moment like that the Lord reminded me of it, of that decision that I made. And He goes, and here you are, apparently 12 years later, and He goes, and you speak about 3 to 4 times a month. And you have a marriage that never would have survived that career at that moment in time. And that real yay, I love you.
Love you too.
Thanks. Real connectedness, not just tolerance, because we did live that path for sure. And I believe a real connectedness with my kids, who I didn't know were going to need a whole lot of me over the next decade. And little did I know that was going to happen. And I felt like the Lord goes, this is the world you made. Now, we're going to have to have a talk this week about the money. I'm just telling you, because that's the part. But all of the rest of the pieces are there. The thing that I went after when I sat with my mentor and said, here's what matters to me, I'm here just a little over a decade later, and I'm getting to share, and I'm living the life that I chose, and I totally forgot. I know, right? It's these commitments that we make, and then we forget about them, and the Lord goes, I didn't forget. I didn't forget. And while you might not think that your life is reflecting the things that you really want, maybe it is. Maybe it just takes, one more musical movie to bring it all back. what I'm saying. Just one more musical movie.
There was music and guns over Navarone.
Also, there was a lot of music in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So there's that.
There was that too.
Wah, wah. Thank you. Right? Thank you. Yes. Okay. We will release kiddos to be champions and game changers, to be magnificent and amazing. You get to go hang out with Mr. Sandra. Abraham is super excited about a couple of videos he has to share. And then I think you also get to have some great conversation. So we will release you. Hip, hip, hooray. So we decided when the Baileys were not going to be here that we were going to wrap up our week or our series with another series. So I was a big fat liar. It wasn't just 2 weeks, it's landing in a third, but we really are ending here.
I don't ever believe you when
you never
say,
believed me when I promised that anyway, right?
Just a couple more minutes.
Just a few more minutes.
36 minutes later.
So we are going to spend a little bit more time on honor and respect and authority. And I don't know if any of you remember what I started out with at the very beginning of this series. Does anybody remember how I introed this series? Anyone? You don't have to, but I'm just really curious. Yeah, do you from Germany somehow, through the Holy Spirit, know how I started this series? Because I'd be super impressed with that word of knowledge. I would, you take a risk, write it down on a card. Okay.
I think that's how we started it.
Right.
We wrote down our definitions on the card.
We did write our definitions down on the card, but I think even before that,
I have
yes you do. Even before that, I said, you will get offended with some of the things I say in this series. I don't know if you recall. If you don't, you may not have a pulse. Because the words honor and respect and authority are triggers for all of us. And there will be things in this series that trigger offense or wound or a hurt or a fear or a frustration or a reminder of. And those are the places, that is the X that marks the spot where the treasure is. Where you get offended are the places where God goes, let me have a new conversation. Let's dig deep in there. That's the little gold nugget on the surface that says, here's the vein of depth and richness. And so in this series, if I have said things that offended, frustrated, or triggered something, go back and ask the Lord and go, okay, what conversation do you want to have with me? And so I have one more week to irritate you on this topic. All right? Thank you, Heather. That's beautiful. So anybody get engaged in the assignment that was this week? And we'll ask Adrian what it was, because I'm pretty confident he wrote it down and was ready for this. He did. Run back.
What is my inner critic talking about?
Okay. Go ahead. Say it again.
So the homework was to ask ourselves, what is my inner critic talking about? What is it focusing on?
Yeah. So the reason why that was the assignment, because so many of us will allow an inner critic voice to guide our interactions with others, guide our perceptions of ourselves, and it hugely impacts our sense of honor, our sense of respect, and how we feel about authority. So, does anybody want to comment on that? You don't have to, but did anybody have some revelation this week about what their inner critic is talking about that they want to share?
I have a cartoon to share.
Excellent. Chuck has a cartoon.
A mechanic is looking in somebody's hood of their car, and it's he says it's a your self-driving car. The self-criticism unit is set too high.
and that is exactly the point. Your self-criticism unit is too high. So funny. That's good. Anybody else want to comment? Yeah. Adrian and Jocelyn? Yeah.
I found myself in my brain commenting on a lot of body image with other people and myself. So that's what I found.
Became aware of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, two things. One was, I think it was last week we were talking about how you were saying how people who are critical of others are critical of themselves and may not realise it. And my thought was, in actual fact, I think the critical voice directed at other people, personally anyway, I've found is a lot easier to shut up than the one that's directed at yourself. It's a easier, that's what I've found. It's an easier voice to silence. So if you're not seeing the criticism of yourself, it's because you're just missing it. It's bound to be there. It's bound to be there if you're criticising others. And for me, the inner critic, I think it's mostly it's telling me I'm not doing good enough. And I think it's looking at the way other people operate and then using that to set the bar way too high for myself. Yeah,
that's so good. Thank you. I had mentioned at some point in this series that the Lord wanted to teach me about honor. He said, I want to teach you about honor. It actually had to do with, so in the series I talked about honor and authority in regards to my relationship with Darby and as a parent. And then I said I had learned so much in my relationship with Greg. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one this time. And when the Lord invited me in to talk about honor with him in regards to Greg, I was like, I don't even know what that word means. And at that point in our marriage, we were really struggling. We wanted to like each other. We wanted to love each other. We wanted to be kind to each other. But we were in a rough season. And I said, I don't even know what honor means. And I felt like the Lord was so kind to me because he goes, well, let me start by helping you understand that respect is not the same as honor. Now, these are my definitions. I'm going to be honest with you, and I said this before. I felt like the Lord shared with me, he goes, respect is something that you earn. It's based on how you perform. Now, by the way, that's very Wikipedia, like, thank goodness God and Wikipedia agree a lot. So that's helpful. Not all the time. But anyway, that's true. But I felt like the Lord said, I'm going to talk to you about honor. And he goes, so you can have respect for Greg based on how he performs. You can have respect for a boss based on how they perform. You can have respect for a colleague or a friend based on how they perform. But he said, honor is in a whole different bucket. Now, this is where it gets dicey, because throughout history, honor and respect don't necessarily have these same distinctions. So this was a personal journey for me. But he goes, honor is about your viewpoint, regardless of how the person behaves. And so there is some evidence that historically honor is a word that means something a little bit different than respect, but there's so many bleed-throughs in all the different cultures that I'm just going to tell you, this was God in me. This was God in me kind of talking. And he goes, I want to introduce you to honor. And he goes, because honor has nothing to do with how the other person performs. Honor has nothing to do with how they're acting. Honor has to do with how you choose to see a person. And this is what was very interesting. He said, it is very, very difficult to have honor for someone else if you have not discovered the honor within yourself. And so I was like, what does that even mean? And he brought me back to Genesis, and you know how that is. I'm like, oh, Genesis again. I'm like, I've heard the stories. And he goes, no, go back again. Go back again. And he goes, and when I created humanity, it says, I blessed them. He blessed them and called humanity good. And when he blessed them, you guys know I've shared this before, that word was barak. He honored them. And that word literally means to get off of your camel and to kneel down in honor. It means to step out of a place of position into another position in order to acknowledge the value of another. And I felt like the Lord was saying, it's about shifting positions, getting out of one place, moving into another place, and honoring. And it's how God sees us. And he said, if you are going to operate in honor, you have to dip from the well that is deep within you, which is your ability to engage with the honor I have for you. You know what I mean? So if we haven't come to experience and know the honor that God has for us and agree with that within ourselves, it's super hard to dip out of that tiny, tiny well and give to someone else the only water we've got. But if that well is overflowing, if we have come to see and know the value of ourselves, it is easy to honor others, isn't it? And we find ourselves struggling with honor and respect when we're operating with a position, right? Position, a mindset of what? So take out a card and think for yourself, where are the places that I most struggle with people or myself in honor or respect? What are the circumstances and situations? And I'm going to give you about a minute to just let the Holy Spirit talk to you and think about what is it? It's called pushing your buttons. What pushes your buttons the most? What triggers that response? Is it a random stranger being rude to you? Is it a family member repeating the same thing that you can't stand, like not keeping their bathroom clean? You know, like, I know, yeah, it's me. It's totally me. I'm sorry. He didn't even have to say it, but I'm like, how could that not? Like, right? Just irk you. Okay, so take a moment and just ask the Holy Spirit, what are the things that trigger me? Right? It's true that. Jocelyn says she needs a bigger card. I'm like, totally. Okay, go. So I bring this up because I had a situation that happened to me this week. Did you have any situations that happened to you this week that triggered you?
Oh, I always get triggered by the same things.
Same things? Are you gonna
Dawdling and incompetent drivers.
Oh, you do. You can't handle it.
I can't handle it.
I can't handle it. He like reverts to a 5-year-old.
Oh, I'm terrible. I want a bulldozer blade in front of my vehicle so I can just move these people out of my way.
Yeah, it's true. That is a trigger.
It's totally a trigger for me.
So I had a situation that happened this week, and you all know that I have a love-hate relationship with hiring people for things, right? I love to hire people for things, and I hate when it doesn't turn out the way I want it to, right? I mean, right? I love people who do stuff that I can't do, or don't want to do, or don't have the skill set to do. But when it doesn't turn out, I get like all undone and frustrated. And so I had a situation that happened this week where that happened. And you know, you think you've communicated what you need. They do something entirely different. They don't remember that communication at all. You are feeling like, what just happened here? Because I thought I communicated effectively. I think I even have it in writing. But anyway, and now how am I going to get what I need? So I realized that there was a whole host of triggers in there for me that lead me to a place to devalue the person's skill set and to resist that person and who God made them to be. And so I looked at, and the Lord just kind of opened up, here is my little bag that undoes me quickly when I have a need. Right? When I am not self-sufficient, I'm not able to solve something for myself, when I have a need. That undoes me. So you could write that down.
The need part?
The need, yeah. So I don't know how many of you have that where that triggers you, but I don't like the feeling of having a need, because that makes me feel out of control. So when somebody else might have a little power and I feel out of control, that's when this starts to come into play. Also, when I'm feeling a sense of lack. So maybe I don't have the skill set, the expertise, the whatever, to solve a problem. Whenever I have a lack, it starts setting me up to discover whether or not I am overflowing in honor or not. Another one that throws me is trust. I thought we communicated well. I thought we had an agreement. I thought that we were on the same page. Like with an employer and an employee, we have a contract. With parents and kids, I thought we had an agreement on how things go. With friends, I thought we had an agreement on how we would relate with each other. And when that goes south, right, all of a sudden I find myself low in honor. How about this one? Expectation. When I have an expectation and things go differently than I expected. Am I hitting on anything for anyone? Okay, so throw yours out. I realized all of those things came into play. Yeah. And then I was starting to feel all angsty inside. So anyone have anything they want to add to this list? Yes? No? Okay. That's good.
It's all wrapped
It's all, okay.
into all of that,
But add to it, yeah.
yeah, just as a, I had a situation as well this week of, I kept telling someone, I want you to do this, I want you to do this. I'm trying to do the right thing.
Oh.
Right? You're trying to do the right thing, and you keep telling them, okay, this has to happen, otherwise we're going to get fined. Okay, yeah, and like you keep getting on top, and then you get the fine in the mail.
Oh.
And you felt like you did everything right.
You could.
Right. Yeah. And then all of a sudden
So-
I lost all respect and honor and whatever and fell out of control. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
So
trust was there was a lack of communication or whatever. Expectation was that I wasn't going to get that bill because he was on it. And when they weren't on it,
Right.
I felt betrayed.
There you go.
Right. That's another word, maybe
Right,
betrayed.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, betrayal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but then what the interesting thing was, all of a sudden this morning, I was able to shift that and go, maybe he was trying his hardest, because I was going to make him pay the bill. that was how mad I was. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I am looking it through this lens. Maybe there's a different lens to look it through. And it was like, right, I was just sharing with you right before, like, maybe I shouldn't be so mad at him. If it continues and it's a pattern, yeah, but why am I expecting all the worst stuff just because I got the fine? Maybe there's something behind that I don't know.
Right. Right.
That was big for me, because normally it's
I like that. That's a good universal noise for losing it.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else want to add? Yeah.
The first word that came to my mind, it kind of has a lot of those in it, but it's injustice. When there's an injustice. But I also wrote betrayal, broken promises.
I don't know. I mean, I had injustice too, but also unfairness, like things not being fair, like is a little different than injustice.
Yeah, injustice is one thing, and unfairness. Yeah, not equitable.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Taylor has a few, so you should just probably do that a lot of the time, Heather. Just do that. That'd be great.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a list, but I'll just do it fast. Anyways, I have people being rude.
Rude.
basic, but that's fine. Being rushed.
Rushed. Nobody can resonate with anything you're saying, Taylor, at all.
Don't look at me. I get you to school on time.
There's no specific situation attached to any of these.
Rushed.
Okay.
People making me feel incompetent.
Oh, snap on that one.
And I have feeling unappreciated.
Wow.
And feeling like I have to babysit my friends, not including Darby because we act dumb together, so it's fine.
Those are really good. Excellent. Way to go. Nicely done. Yeah, throw your one out there.
If I feel like I did everything right in the situation,
Right?
then I get, yeah.
Yeah, I did everything right. I don't even know what you put for that, but just put Christy and Anch. We were right. Oh, awkward. Okay.
I get unglued when I'm disappointed.
Yes, disappointed. And that is part of that expectation thing, and disappointed. And even if you didn't know you had an expectation, but once you discover that you're disappointed, you discover you did have an expectation you didn't know you had. Right? So these are all the things that can become a gift to us. Because, by the way, they're going to happen. Because we happen to live around other people. Yeah, we just live around other people. Other people.
Other people who don't get ready on time.
And drive slowly.
Or drive slow, or whatever it is. We live around other people. These things are going to happen, and we can spend our life getting unhinged by these kinds of experiences, right? And some of them are very, very serious. They're not to be laughed at. They're very serious. Or we can take advantage of these situations and get vengeance. And vengeance is settling down, tapping into the well inside of ourselves, and go, I don't have enough honor for this situation. I don't have enough the well is empty of honor for myself, for this other person. Lord, I need Barak. I need you to help me shift out of the place that I am and get into the position where I am overflowing with the goodness that you made me to be, where my goodness is greater and humanity's goodness is greater, and your intention and your heart in this situation is greater than this. This is where we get to become more. You want to become bigger, you want to become more magnificent, you want to be more powerful, you want to have your superhero power. There it is. But it comes by way of injustice, lack, broken, betrayal. It comes by the way of it's hard to have the honor that you don't have until you get into situations that reveal the honor that you don't have. Right? It's hard to have an overflow of, it's hard to experience a miracle if you don't need a miracle. Right? So we can either endure these situations, continuing to allow ourselves to struggle in the fight, or we can get vengeance on all lack. Lack of people being their true selves with us, the lack that triggers within us, and go, Lord, prove it to me. Prove to me who you are here. Prove to me who I am. Show me something about, like you did, Carrie, show me something about this situation. Now, let's be clear. That doesn't mean we let people abuse us. That doesn't mean we don't have boundaries. So do you want to know, anybody want to guess out of the message so far what the solution was for my infuriating rage at a person who disregarded my instructions and completed a job in a way that doesn't actually work for me? Okay, yeah, what was it?
You asked, what's going on?
Yeah, what does this mean? What shall I do, right? I did. So that was good. Well done, Danielson. You have been well, yes, I did that. And then, what was
My guess is your response was to get over it because in perspective, it's not that important.
Okay, no. But thank you. I'm just teasing.
It should be.
Right? It sure should be in the scheme of all of life and all of that. But I'm like, I still need this job done. It has to get done. It's actually super significant. So how do I handle this? And I could let the person go. You know, I could find someone else, you know, but I needed to get out of the position where I had had my amygdala hijacked, right? Where I'd had that part of my brain that says, alert, alert, danger, danger, freak out. Freak out, the sky is falling. That's what happens when these things happen. And it's time to settle down within ourselves and go, okay. And by the way, I'm going to take a moment and share this. Did I already share about the guy who does the climbing, right? And his amygdala? Did I share about that, right? Right? And how he has a lower, so this guy who does this unbelievable free climbing, like super, super, super dangerous. So most of you heard this already. His amygdala has very low response, which means, and amygdala is not what makes you feel fear. The amygdala is the part of your brain that tells you that you're in a dangerous situation. So his being really low means that he's not going to hyperventilate when many of us would in dangerous situations, because he has a high threshold for danger, right? That's what we are doing here, is we are developing within ourselves a high threshold